In this video, I'm going to texture this pot shape. I'll start off in my orthographic side view and creating the path with the CV Curve tool. In the object mode, I'll hold down the space bar, I'll go to Surfaces, and I'll go to Revolve in the Attributes. In the Attributes, I'll choose the Y-axis, polygons, and control points. Before I add my new texture, in my perspective view, I'll rotate the geometry so I can see the bottom of this pot shape. I'll right-click and choose Vertex. 4 on the keyboard, I'm going to select and merge at the center, the very bottom. With it selected, I'll go to Edit Mesh, and I'll choose Merge to Center. I'll return to the object mode, right-click on the geometry, and choose Assign New Material, Arnold, AI Standard Surface, and I'll introduce through the Color tab under Base the default checker. Hitting 6 on the keyboard, I'll now add a UV map. I've deleted my type history and I've clicked on Freeze Transform. Holding down the spacebar with the geometry selected, I'll go to UVs and I'll choose Cylindrical Mapping. The virtual tool appears to be a half of a cylinder shape, and I want to close that out. I'm going to click and snap the two red ones together, but the rectangular shapes appear kind of flattened and squashed here. I'll return to my object mode and I will get my UV editor. In the UV editor, I'll right click and I'll choose UV shell and I'll select the shell. Now often enough it's easier to scale it so it's larger than the checkerboard quadrant, so you can see the scale and you can see these little rectangular boxes a little bit better. Now my objective is to square these off, and I'm going to do the bottom first. In my UV editor, I'll start to drag on my Y-axis and I'll scale it down. And if need be, I'll scale the whole thing from center again just to confirm that the boxes are perfectly square. So this will work for this part of the pot shape. I'm going to scale it in now so it fits in the quadrant with the checkerboard. I'll use my Move tool and I'll put it just outside the bottom. Returning to the geometry in its object mode, I'll go back to my side view and I'll right click and choose Face. And this gets subjective, but I know I want a pattern that runs along the top and through the center, and I want to keep it proportional to the texture I make in Photoshop. So I'll click and drag a number of faces here at the top of the neck. And then once again I'll go to UV and I'll choose Cylindrical Mapping. Now I'm going to adjust this cylinder UV tool, once again by snapping it out. And then going into my UV editor, I'll scale it so that I can see the boxes a little easier. And now I'll try and get the proportion of these so that they're perfectly square up at the top where I want the next texture to go. From the very center, I'll scale it down to fit inside the UV quadrant here. Now it looks like I could tweak that a little bit more. Now I'm going to put both of these UV maps inside the checkerboard. I'll hit W and I'll move this one up. I'll select the other one by choosing UV shell and selecting it, and I'll pull that up as well. Now I'm going to get in close on this and I'm going to turn off the checkerboard pattern because I know I got the proportions I want by looking at the UV map on the actual geometry. So now I'd like to put these as close together as I can. And I'm also going to scale it so that they're kind of the same width. And you can see now if I were to zoom in, they're pretty much right where they should be, and proportionally they're the same as far as the texture map goes on the geometry. I'll return to the object mode and I'll go to Images, UV Snapshot, and I'll save it and make sure that it is a .png and the aspect ratio is 1040 by 1040. And I'm making sure the edge color is black and it's all the way to the left. Give me the darkest UV map in Photoshop. I'll choose Apply and Close. Now we're ready to go into Photoshop and make our texture.